This is take 2 on how to single crochet. I did a previous video and the background was like a gray color and I was using dark green yarn. It was very hard to see what I was doing. So I'm just going to redo the video so that you can see things a little more clearly. All right, to begin, start by making a slip knot. And I'm just going to make 5 chains to demonstrate. You would make the designated number of chains for your project. It will always tell you in your project how many chains to start with. Okay, so I've got 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to make one more chain for my turning chain. Single crochet will always have one turning chain at the end of the row. And that is actually to bring the work up to the correct height. Okay, so this is the loop on my hook. This is my turning chain right there that I just made. And this is the second stitch from the hook. So insert your hook into the second stitch from the hook right under that very top loop. And just insert your hook, yarn over from the back to the front of your hook, pull up a loop. Yarn over from the back to the front again and pull through both loops on the hook. And that is your very first stitch. So look at the top of this stitch. You'll see that distinctive V that it makes. And this little tiny V right here is actually your turning chain. If you look at the front too, you can actually see where it's coming out of the chain stitch that you just inserted the hook into. So let's go to stitch number 2, right here. And you just want to insert your hook into that very top piece of yarn in your chain stitch. Yarn over from the back to the front, pull up a loop, yarn over from the back to the front, and pull through both loops. And again, looking from the top, you can see there's stitch 1 and there's stitch 2. Okay, stitch number 3. There's the hole right there. You can see where stitch 2 is coming out. So go over to the next hole, which is the chain. Insert your hook right under that top loop. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. And now you've got 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. Let's go to stitch number 4. That chain stitch is right here. Insert your hook under the very top loop. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through both loops. And you've got stitch 1, stitch 2, stitch 3, stitch 4. Okay, last stitch. It's always a little confusing, I think, when you get to the very end here. So, right, you can see where stitch number 4 is coming out of the big hole there. So here's your next hole right there. This is your slip knot. So stick your hook right in there under the top loop of your chain, yarn over from the back to the front and pull up that loop, yarn over from the back to the front and pull through both loops on the hook. Okay, we're at the end of our row here, and now we need to make a turning chain to bring our work up to the correct height for the next row. You can either make the turning chain right now, just make 1 chain stitch and turn, or I'm going to take that stitch out that I just made. Or you can turn your work first and then make the chain stitch. It does not matter which route you go, as long as you want to just be consistent with that, because it does kind of create this edging here, and it's kind of nice if your edging looks the same along your entire project. Okay, so now we've made our turning chain. So this is the loop on the hook. This is our turning chain. And this right here is the first stitch. So we want to get our hook underneath of both. It looks like a big row of V's. So we want to get our hook under both of those top loops. So if I separate it, you can see it's going under 2 loops instead of just one, like when you're working into the chain. Okay, so yarn over from the back to the front and pull that loop through. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through both loops. And that's the stitch from the top that you just made. That's your turning chain right there. And you can see where it's coming out of that big gigantic hole. It always makes a big hole because you're pulling so much on it, but it closes. So here's your next stitch. You can kind of see it through the front there. It's right there, but I always find it nice to just kind of flip my work so that I can make sure that I'm getting my hook right under both of those 2 top loops of that single crochet stitch. And then you'll yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. And there's your 2 stitches that are made. Stitch 1, stitch 2. Your turning chain is right there. All right, and let's do stitch number 3. And get the tip of your hook under both those loops from that single crochet stitch. Can you see the separation? I always think it looks like a V. Yarn over from the back to the front. Whoops, I lost that. Let's try that again. Insert your hook. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. And just flip your work again. Stitch number 4. Go under both top 2 loops there. And yarn over from back to front, pull up a loop. Yarn over from back to front and pull through 2 loops. Now this is where it gets tricky here on the very end. So that's your very last stitch where you see that V right there. This nubby thing sticking out on the edge is your turning chain. So you don't want to work into that turning chain, you just want to work under that V. So just get your hook under both of those top loops. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop. And yarn over from the back to the front and pull through both loops. And that is the completion of the second row. So counting back, you've got stitch 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and that's your turning chain right there. And you're just going to complete your single crochet project exactly like row 2. You're just going to make your turning chain, turn your work like the page of a book, and you'll start again on this row by inserting your hook into the second chain from the hook. So there's chain 1, chain 2 right there. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And that's the very first stitch. And you'll just work that across, and you're just going to do that for every single row. And that is how you single crochet.